following is a presentation of BFA Sports. All right, what's up, everybody? It is episode 2 of the NFL Draft Bible All Access Pass Draft Show. We are live on the BFA Sports YouTube channel. Mike Gill, the OG, is in the house. Ric Serritella is live in Indianapolis at the Combine. And we got some news and notes you need to know for day 2 down in Indy. D-line linebackers working out tomorrow. We got news and notes. We got Combine snubs. Kayla Santiago, she's been talking to some of the big names at the Combine. We'll have her popping on in about 15 minutes or so here. But the OG's in the house. Ric Serritella, what's up, NFL Draft Bible?
Mike, the NFL Scouting Combine never gets old. We are on location again for the 21st year of independent scouting analysis and coverage at the NFL Draft Bible. Make sure you go check us out over at Sports Illustrated. And yes, we have podium interviews. We got positional drills. We got linebackers and defensive line getting ready to do the work. And there's nothing more exciting for me than the NFL Scouting Combine.
Well, the Combine, everybody getting ready to do the work to get to that draft, to that next step. That's what we're all leading up to. We'll have you every Monday, Wednesday, Friday right here at 10 o'clock, giving you all the news nuggets you need. Let's look at these defensive linemen. Let's chop it up, man. Jalen Carter at the top of the list. Many people think he could be the number 1 pick or could have been the number 1 pick if a quarterback doesn't go first, but some news coming out about him. Let's get into that, plus some other D-line thoughts you have as they get ready to work out tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, the details are still a little bit murky here on this developing story with Jalen Carter. I guess he was on the scene, Mike, of an automobile accident that involved a fatal crash. And so police are saying he gave him the runaround. Was he racing this individual? Was he part of the accident? Did he happen to be around the accident? I think the details matter here, especially with Henry Ruggs fresh on the mind. In fact, right before we hopped on air, I saw Henry Ruggs has his court date for May 4th, I believe. He was going 176 miles per hour. Was this another potential Henry Ruggs situation? If so, I think there could be some red flags amongst NFL decision makers.
Yeah, the kind of details that are kind of murky, as you said, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution saying that he first told police he was a mile away. Then he said he was behind the vehicle and could see the taillights. Then he's saying he's alongside the car when it crashed. They are the details from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Rick. And Jalen Carter, when I look at NFL Draft Bible, the big board, he's your number 1 defensive tackle. This is a guy who could be a defensive changing type of player. And now you got these questions, and, you know, he's not going to work out. You got these chases. Was he racing? You know, how could this possibly affect him?
Well, you know, Mike, I think the fact that he's not working out right now, all the attention is going to be focused on this storyline. Had he come to Indianapolis with the intention of working out, maybe he could have set the Lucas Oil Stadium on fire, jumped through the gymnasium. Maybe people could be talking about his workout. Instead, they're going to be talking about his off-the-field transgressions. And I think now when you get behind closed doors and NFL teams kind of do their date interviews, this is going to be a big topic of conversation. So I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that he's not working out. I think it's unfortunate that we have this little news item now here. And so the draft process, they say trust the process. It's not off to a good start for the one Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I mean, the official story up to this point, everybody, has been that the teammate, who, by the way, the teammate and the staffer, Chandler LaCroix and Georgia offensive lineman Devin Willock, both passed away in the crash. Another player and another staffer were injured. Carter was questioned. The official story had been that it was a 1-car accident, driving too fast. And now there's questions whether Carter could be in some legal jeopardy. Remember, he was ticketed in September going 89 in a 45. So he has a little bit of background of fast driving. So we'll see if this affects Jalen Carter, because, Rick, if a quarterback doesn't go number 1, is Jalen Carter the number 1 pick?
Well, I think it comes down to Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, who we just heard from a few minutes ago on the podium. I think those are the 2 top players from a talent and skill standpoint. Now, we all know quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the board. So it could be a scenario where we don't see Jalen Carter or Will Anderson come off the board until the 4th or the 5th overall pick, should teams decide to move up, should the Bears decide to trade down. I think everybody's looking to trade down, but it takes two to tango. So if the Bears can find a willing trade partner, how much draft equity is a team willing to give up? How much will Houston give up to go from number 2 to number 1 to ensure they get their guy? How much will the Colts move up? And we'll hear from Chris Ballard, the GM, today at 3:30 p.m. We'll have that soundbite and see what he says about the quarterback situation. So it's going to be an interesting, I think, next few months. Maybe it goes down to draft day until we see the trades, but I do think Jalen Carter and Will Anderson are the two players there in contention to be the number 1 overall pick.
All right, NFL Draft Bible All Access Pass Show. Let's go to the ends. You got Myles Murphy, Ty Wilson, Lucas Van Ness. Those 3 guys on the NFL Draft Bible. You've got them ranked as first-round candidates. Break them down. Give us a little nuggets on those guys. They're going to work out. And what are we looking for? Because these guys are first-round talents.
Yeah, and believe it or not, Mike, there are some teams I'm hearing that do have Tyree Wilson ahead of Will Anderson in terms of being the top overall pass rusher in this year's draft. Now, Tyree Wilson is more of a hand in the dirt, 6'5.5", 270 pounds. He does not look like that. He's got a great physique. His frame is built to live on the edge. This guy has an incredible bend and dip when he comes off of the edge. And so it's unfortunate, again, that Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson will not be working out. I do hear that Will Anderson is going to do positional drills. I don't know if he's going to actually test and do any of the timing. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. I think it's a huge opportunity for Myles Murphy, who's a weight room warrior, a workout. He's built for the combine. He's going to really do some things here in the 40-yard dash. I think when he gets through the process, Myles Murphy is a guy that can kind of elevate his draft stock since Carter and Wilson are sitting out. It's a huge opportunity for Myles Murphy. And then Lucas Van Ness. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who drew a crowd to the podium just a few minutes ago. I mean, we were probably 100 deep of media standing around Lucas Van Ness at the podium, and NFL teams also lining up to interview this young man. Only a redshirt sophomore, Mike, so I think the upside with Lucas Van Ness is greater than the other candidates. And I do got to throw my guy, Keon White, out of Georgia Tech. I think he flashed down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. I think he can run a pretty good 40-yard dash time as well. And if scouts see that athleticism like they saw in Mobile, I think Keon White has a good chance of sneaking into the back end of the first round.
Okay, the linemen are interesting because obviously they have become the hot draft picks recently. People like those interior lines. You look at a team like Philadelphia, who has built the defensive line. You only have at NFL Draft Bible at the tackle position 2 round 1 guys, Carter and Breesy. So it's not a depthful position if you're looking for that home run in round 1.
Yeah, Barisi from Clemson and Jalen Carter from Georgia, I think, are the guys. Now, Mazi Smith from Michigan is an interesting player. He hasn't been talked about a lot. He wasn't at the All-Star circuit, so I think he's going to refresh the scouts' memories. And then the kid from Baylor, who really is a nose tackle. I don't see a team using a first-round pick on Ika out of Baylor, but I'll tell you what, he's probably a top 50. And then Kalijah Cansey, Mike, for whatever it's worth, man. I know he comes in a shade under 6 feet tall.
I like him a lot. And I got to say, Rick, I'm a West Virginia guy, so I'm giving Pitt guy credit, but I like Cansey. Listen, this guy put up, Aaron Donald type numbers at Pitt, first team all ACC, but first team All-American, 14 and a half tackles behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, this guy jumped off the page in the ACC.
No, without a doubt. And I think, the old school scouts, they have this this dilemma, right? They can't get over their old school ways of thinking, right? They see a guy that's not long enough, not tall enough.
280.
And he's going to probably come in a shade under 6 feet tall. However, Mike, when you put on the film, here's my response to scouts. This man can play football, and he can play for me any day of the week.
Yeah. So there's a look at the defensive lineman. Let's go to the linebacker spot. Linebacker's kind of the lost position, man. You take a look at linebacker, and, some teams don't value them at all. Some teams value him a lot. Will Anderson, we're going to talk a little bit more about Will. Kayla Santiago is going to join me here in just a couple of minutes as she got some news notes and quotes from Will Anderson, the Alabama stud. When you look at linebacker, who do we look for that can work their way at the combine, maybe up that draft board?
Yeah, I think Drew Sanders from Arkansas is a guy that I'm really curious to see out here because I think that's a guy, if you talk to different teams, depending on who you speak to, some people like him as an edge rusher, some people like him as an off-ball linebacker. I like him right there in the mic. I'll put him right in the middle of the defense. He can fly to the football. He's got lateral quickness. He seeks out the ball carriers. He's got quick closing speed, read and react instincts. Drew Sanders, I mean, this guy's the real deal. And if we're talking off-ball linebackers, Noah Sewell, brother of Penei Sewell, didn't quite have the year that he wanted out of Oregon, but I tell you what, this guy has all the physical traits. He's got the football IQ. We call it FBI, football intelligence, Mike. Noah Sewell's a guy I think is a top 50 pick. Jack Campbell out of Iowa, 6'4", 250 pounds. I'm curious to see what he runs because I think that he could maybe be a potential dark horse to sneak into that first round conversation. And Trenton Simpson is a guy from Clemson. He might be the fastest linebacker here. So we're going to see what he runs down the line. Isaiah Land from Florida A&M, if you want an HBCU, small school, FCS product, I really thought he kind of catapulted himself into the top 100 conversation with a strong combine performance. Isaiah Land, what? Florida A&M, putting him on the map. And then, I don't know Nolan Smith, what his medical status is. He missed the season with an injury. He's a guy being talked about in the first round conversation. I did not hear that he's going to work out, but he is here making the rounds and doing the interviews. Nolan Smith is a forgotten man from that Georgia defense. I think he is a first round pick.
I'll tell you what, don't act like you don't know the name. Mike Jones, LSU. I know he's a mid-round guy, but I like him, man. I think, 230. What's he going to run? He's like that 4.6 guy. Can he advance that number? And I think he's a guy in the mid-round that could be a playmaker. I like Mike Jones, LSU, to keep an eye on with this linebacking group here.
Yeah, and I think LSU has always have a reputation for putting out quality linebackers, even though, it might not look gaudy on paper. This guy has the physical traits. He's got the speed. He's got the athleticism. He's got the pedigree. So, yeah, I'm with you there on Mike Jones.
All right, that is a look at everything that's going on. Let's look at some snubs. Everybody wants to know who didn't make the combine, and you got the news, nuggets, and thoughts on some people who should be here getting a chance to showcase themselves. You've been around to all the different bowl games, East, West, Shrine Bowl. You've seen them all. You've seen the talent across this country. Who deserves to be at this combine?
Yeah, it's time to shine a spotlight on some of those underdogs, on some of those small school guys. Mike, for those of you who are not familiar with the scouting combine process, every team gets a vote. And Jeff Foster, who's the head of the NIC National Invitation Combine, he's the tiebreaker with the 33rd vote. Now, the magic number traditionally has been around 18 to 20 votes, kind of gets you into the combine, depending on your position, depending on the depth. But you get 20 votes, usually you get to the combine. I'm wondering what the heck are the West Coast scouts doing? Because Marte Mapu from Sacramento State is one of the top 100 players in this year's draft, and he's not in Indianapolis. So I'm just curious, is it because the Blesto and the National didn't rank him, so the scouts are lazy? He's not on the list. I'm not going into Sacramento State. I mean, all this guy does is show up and show out. He went to the NFLPA Bowl. He's flying around the football, hair on fire, gets called up to the Senior Bowl, and he's one of the best players down in Mobile. So I'm just curious and perplexed as to why Marte Mapu is not in Indianapolis. He can play safety. He can play linebacker. He's lined up in the slot. How about Keenan Isaac out of Alabama State? Our Southeast scout, Mike, went into Alabama State, and he goes all the way back to Cornell Green. If you watch the old NFL film, Super Bowl highlight, that doomsday defense, Cornell Green, he said, Keenan Isaac is a blend between Cornell Green and Antrell Roll. How's that for a comparison? He's got length, he's got size, change of direction ability, a little bit raw, but I'm telling you what, Keenan Isaac is going to be an impact player in this year's draft. He's not in Indianapolis. And then Muhammad Diabate from Utah, are you kidding me? Anybody who watched the East-West Shrine Bowl knows this guy was moving at a different speed than the rest of the competition. I again, think he's going to be one of the impact players in this year's draft. He's not in Indianapolis. Scott Matlick, if you want a guy from Boise State, we bring you the names you need to know. Scott Matlick is a guy, 4th, 5th round. He ain't going to be there. Why isn't he here in Indianapolis? I have no idea. You want to talk about nose tackles, 5 technique? Scott Matlick is that guy. I can go on and on. Ryan Sabota from UCF. I mean, this guy has got one of the incredible stories. He almost died from a heat stroke down there when he was with Virginia, transfers to UCF to be closer to home, develops into one of the best tackle prospects in this year's draft. He reminds me of Alejandro Villanueva. And if you remember, this guy was like 6'9", just like Ryan Sabota. We gave him reps at left tackle, and the NFL scouts are saying, you know what? He's got a shot to stick there. Never mind right tackle. This is a potential left tackle. He's not in Indianapolis, Mike. I can go on and on and on. The combine committee, you got to get it. Got to get it right.
Let's follow up on that. What hurts these guys by not being here? How does this affect them come April when that draft is here? Tell the people about why this event is so important, and those guys not being here, why it affects them.
Well, it's called, what is it? The group box thinking effect, where you would think that a lot of teams have strong independent minds, but it's more of a group think. And teams have a hard time thinking outside the box. There's a lot of teams that are scared to put their stamp of approval on a guy who's not at the combine, Mike. And if you look at numbers, right, only 20 to 30 guys a year on average get drafted who were not invited to the NFL Scouting Combine. You know why? Because we don't have the verified heights, the verified measurements, the testing on a neutral surface. It goes a long way. It makes the NFL teams more comfortable. I get to meet you here in Indianapolis. I get to see your medical testing here in Indianapolis. So whether I like you, don't like you, you know, I got scouts that tell me they're in the elimination process. Mike, I'm just here to eliminate guys on my big board. So I think that's what hurts when you're not in Indianapolis, in the center of the NFL universe with about a dozen representatives from each NFL organization. It decreases your chances of being selected in the NFL draft.
All right, we got more coming up. Kayla Santiago is going to join me for a quick conversation. She is down there with NFL Draft Bible, the All Access Pass show. We're going to get a quick insight on Will Anderson. What did she learn from Will Anderson, including who is the toughest opponent he has faced entering the draft process? The combine is here. Kayla will join me next, and then Rick will pop back in for the final 2 minutes as we take a look at all the news happening around Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. The Seahawks might draft a quarterback. Are you kidding me? That's all still to come right here on NFL Draft Bible's All Access show on BFA Sports. Our NFL Draft Bible All Access show continues live coverage from the Combine in Indianapolis. I'm Mike Gill in the Atlantic City studios. Kayla Santiago with NFL Draft Bible. She is representing them all week long at the Combine, is set to give us a little news and information she has been gathering down there. But first, Kayla, tell us a little bit about the 7th annual NFL Women's Forum that you got a chance to attend down in Indianapolis, this opportunity to advance football for women.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. They had it last night, which was really great because it kind of kicked off everything before we got into the nitty-gritty of things this morning. But just to see so many accomplished women in one place, there was team reporters, there was people from news stations, everything in between. And it was really, really good to connect. You know, there's people that have been in the industry for 10 plus years and then people that are just starting out in year 3 or 4. So to be able to connect with these outstanding women that really are accomplished was fantastic. And everybody's so welcoming. Everybody's so helpful, you know, introducing everybody to everybody else. Because some people, you know, knew each other and have been here before. But for the people that haven't, everybody was just meeting. You know, it was really, really cool to be around. And I don't think I've ever seen so many women in sports in one place. So that was really awesome for me as a female, definitely coming down here and not knowing too many people.
Well, I know as a female, you were mixing it up with some of the big boys down there and did your job getting Will Anderson and getting a chance to get right up there and hear what he had to say, as he is one of the feature people this week at this combine. People will have all eyes on Will Anderson and what he is going to do, because he has a shot to be possibly the #1 overall pick in this draft. I'm sure he is in that conversation, but give us a little insight on who he thought was one of the toughest players or the toughest player that he faced leading up to his NFL career.
Will, who's the toughest player you played against in college and why?
The toughest player I played against in college? Bijan Robinson, from the running back from Texas. He was a big back. We had to game tackle him all. We had to get all hats to the ball. He was going to break a few tackles. We had to tackle him the right way, but he was probably the most toughest person I played in college.
And Kayla, you just said it, Bijan Robinson. A lot of people, he's a polarizing discussion. Rick and I talked a little bit about him on Monday's show, but a lot of people think he could be a top 5 player in this draft. But Will Anderson said that's the toughest player he has played against, period.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot because I think a lot of people were expecting him to more offensive tackle for people to face. But when he said that, I think everybody was really surprised, which is really, really exciting to see what is going to happen in this draft. I mean, Will Anderson is a heck of a player. He's really, really good at his position. So for him to say that, I think everybody that was there kind of was stepped back a little bit. But he said it with full confidence. You know, at first, I think he was trying to think of what position he wanted to pick, but then he said, yeah, this guy is the real deal and has been the toughest to take down when he's been out there.
Yeah, he spoke highly about, obviously Bijan Robinson, but he is also hoping to be the first non-quarterback drafted. How much does that mean to him to be that first non-quarterback, possibly the first pick, but being that first non-quarterback taken?
He said it would mean everything to him. I mean, he said this is the blood, sweat, and tears that I worked my whole life for. And a lot of people did ask, how would you feel, if you dropped a 2 or 3? And he said, listen, if I'm 1, 2, or 3, I really don't care. Of course, number 1 would be fantastic, but he's about to live out his dream in front of the whole entire world. So I think being number 1 would be completely different for him and just for the position at itself. But he said this is everything he's worked for. This is what he put everything into in college. He gave a lot of credit to Nick Saban in Alabama as well. So him being in this position right now, I mean, you could just see smiles on his face at the podium. It was really good to see. He was super excited to have this opportunity. And if he selected 1, I'm sure that big smile is going to be there just like it was today at the podium.
Well, as a sophomore, he led the nation with 17.5 sacks and 34.5 tackles for loss. He finished his career with an amazing 34.5 sacks, 62 tackles behind the line of scrimmage for the Crimson Tide. Kayla, who are you looking forward to? More interviews over at NFL Draft Bible. Who are you looking forward to hearing from over the next couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of coaches today, which I think will be exciting. Frank Reich is going to be there, as well as Shane Steichen, which I think is going to be cool to see, how much are they going to talk draft or how much are they going to talk, about the team as well. I'm also excited for John Harbaugh with the Ravens. I'm curious to see which direction they're going to go in as well. And, everybody's, I think, going to ask the same question. Where do you want to go? What do you like so far? What have you liked to see? So I'm excited for the coaches, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic and a little bit of a change from what we saw today with the players that, nerves are high for them. They're in the biggest stage of their life right now. So the coaches later on, which we'll have later on our social medias as well, will be interesting for sure.
And we'll have the clips from that coming up on Friday's edition of NFL Draft Bible All Access Show. She's Kayla Santiago in Indianapolis, and you can follow all her coverage at NFL Draft Bible. When we come back, we got the 2-minute drill, Aaron Rodgers and Carr, and maybe the Seahawks drafting a quarterback. We'll finish up with that. Kayla, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, more coming up next here on NFL Draft Bible's All Access Show on BFA Sports. All right, welcome back. The NFL Draft Bible All Access Show. Mike Gill, Ric Serritella, the OG, is in Indianapolis. And we know, thanks to Kayla Santiago, by the way, breaking down the Will Anderson, he said that Bijan Robinson was the best player he's ever faced. Well, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL is Aaron Rodgers. Rick, so let's start the 2-minute clock right there. Aaron Rodgers basically saying, hey, I'll make a decision soon enough. You okay with that answer?
Oh, first of all, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL maybe 10 years ago, Mikey. I mean, I don't know.
Whoa. He won the MVP 2 years ago.
Hey, I don't know about that. I don't know. It's down Charlie over here. Aaron Rodgers, he's too scared to picks. Listen, this guy, I saw the quotes, Mike. He's telling us how he's a private guy and he doesn't really want to talk about it, but he's been asked about it. Like, dude, you're airing out your dirty laundry. Like, stop it. Just because you're asked about it doesn't mean you have to spill every single detail about your thought process. Nobody cares. Shut up. Let us know what you think. And when you're ready, we'll be ready. I'm tired of this guy. What a prima donna. What a diva. He doesn't want to be called that. But here he is, airing out all his dirty laundry in front of the public eye. this is not a guy that I want on my football team. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think it's fatigue. It's analysis by paralysis with Aaron Rodgers. This is like the third year in a row he is kind of hidden in the cave and come up with a decision here. So I think it's a little bit of paralysis by analysis. If this was the first time he did this, we might be more intrigued. But just get back to me, Aaron, when you know what you want to do. Let's go to Derek Carr. Met with the Panther Saints on Tuesday. He'll meet with the Jets today. Derek Carr, what do we know?
We know the Jets are making a hardcore push, right? Like they brought him into the facility, showed him this big video. Hey, Carr, you're a Hall of Famer if you wear Broadway green. And so Jets are trying to seal the deal and close the deal, I believe. However, I take a look at the team like the Saints, Mike. I think that might be the best fit for Carr. I don't know if it's necessarily an upgrade over Jameis Winston, but Winston can't stay healthy, and he just hasn't been able to get the job done. So they've decided to go in a direction. The Saints, if they had some quarterback stability, maybe can have some pieces around to contend. But Michael Thomas, he's another one. He only wants to play when the team is in contention. And when they're not, he checks out and has a mystical, magical injury, so to speak, and you never hear from him again. So I think the Saints probably would benefit from a guy like Carr. The Panthers are still at least a year, maybe two from competing. The Jets are ready to compete. The Saints are ready to compete. I think those are the better fits for Carr.
Yeah, and Carr is at the Combine, apparently, meeting with these teams. He's going to fly out to the Jets and meet with them again. So if you see Carr, try to get a little feel on where he's leaning right now. All right, Rick, let's finish up with a possible draft situation. The Seahawks see a rare opportunity. They have the number 5 pick in the draft. They were, right there with Geno Smith last year, but they have the 5th pick in the draft. Did they get a quarterback plus 2 second-round picks? So they have a shot here to possibly move on from Geno and get their quarterback in the future. What are we thinking with the Seahawks at 5?
It's interesting because here's a quarterback that they kind of groomed, they developed. Geno Smith has had the benefit of sitting behind some all-time greats and Russell Wilson. He was behind Eli Manning, if you remember. I think he might have even backed up Phillip Rivers for a year, and then he comes into his own. I mean, I got to go back to Rich Gannon to think of a quarterback who was such a late bloomer in his career, a decade into the game. But I mean, I liked what I saw from Geno Smith, and you would think that Seattle maybe could even get a hometown discount here. I don't know. Maybe they're not sold on Geno. If you remember this time last year, we didn't know, was it Drew Lock? Was it Geno Smith? They were competing for John, but I mean, Geno Smith played arguably a top 10 quarterback performance this past season. So I'm kind of curious why the long in the tooth Pete Carroll would be looking at a young quarterback to start from scratch and start over. I think, what Geno Smith showed me is that he's a guy that can win ball games. If I'm the Seahawks, I'm rolling it with Geno.
Oh, so instead of if a quarterback, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, if they're there at number 5, you pass and stay with Geno?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those guys need a lot of work to get to the point where Geno Smith is at. It took Geno Smith 10 years of hard work. He's already done the work. I know what I got in Geno Smith. I feel comfortable.
What about, CJ Stroud, number 5. He's on the board. What do you do?
You got to talk to me about the contract and the numbers and everything else. But, I mean, just from a talent perspective, I know Geno Smith is the proven commodity. Do I believe C.J. Stroud will be a better quarterback? Yes, I do. But that might take 2-3 years down the road. At that point, Pete Carroll might not even be the coach of the Seahawks. I'm sticking with Geno.
All right, NFL Draft Bible All Access Show. We're back on Friday right here on the BFA Sports YouTube channel and all the social media platforms. Make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe. Get it out to the people. Established in 2002, Ric Serritella's NFL Draft Bible. It's the leading authority on the NFL Draft. It's used by all 32 teams. Sports Illustrated, check us out. We'll be back on Friday for all of your NFL Draft Combine news notes. For Rick, thanks to Kayla, I'm Mike Gill, and this has been the NFL Draft Bible All Access Show.
8 p.m. Twitter Spaces tonight. Buckle up.
There you go.